All right, let's talk about something that's, well, everywhere. Technology. It's moving so fast it can feel like the Wild West sometimes. So, how do we figure out what's right and wrong? That's what computer ethics is all about, and we're going to dive right in.
So for this explainer, we're pulling from lesson 8.1 of the Intro to IT curriculum. It really gets to the core of this fascinating intersection between the tech we build and, our fundamental human values.
And this really is the big question, isn't it? Every single piece of code we write, every app we use, every policy we set, it all has ripples. We're not just making choices for today. We're literally building the world that our kids and their kids are going to inherit.
Okay, so here's what we've got on tap. We'll start with the big dilemma technology poses, then we'll untangle the difference between ethics and actual laws. After that, we'll check out some classic rules of the road for computing, see how the pros handle it, and finally, we'll talk about something that affects all of us, your right to privacy.
First up, this technological dilemma. The best way to think about it is this. Technology is like a souped-up speedboat, just blasting ahead. But our laws, our social rules, they're more like a slow, steady barge. That speedboat is so far out in front that it's constantly hitting weird new situations that our old maps just can't help us with. And this, right here, is a perfect example of that dilemma in action. Just think about it. A cybercriminal in country A hits a server in country B, but they bounce the signal through, a dozen other countries. So who gets to press charges? Is it where the data was stored, all the countries it passed through, or the place where the hacker was actually using it? Our laws were built for physical borders, and they just weren't ready for this.
So how do we even begin to navigate these super murky waters? Well, a good start is getting a really clear picture of the difference between what's unethical and what's illegal. Because trust me, they are not the same thing.
Let's break this down. Think of it like this. Regulations, those are the must-nots. They're the rules written down by governments, and if you break them, you face real consequences, like fines or even jail time. Pickpocketing? That's illegal. But ethics, those are the should-nots. That's your internal moral compass. If you find a wallet on the street packed with cash and decide to keep it, that might not be technically illegal, but pretty much everyone would agree it's unethical.
And this leads to a really cool idea called character-based ethics. The thinking here is, instead of trying to memorize a giant rule book for every possible situation, what if we focused on developing good character? The whole point is that an ethical person will just naturally make the right call, even when they face a brand new problem that's not in any textbook.
Now, having good character is one thing, but it helps to have some guiding principles, right? Some guardrails. And over the years, some really smart people have tried to lay out some foundational rules for how we should use computers. Let's look at a few.
So let's look at one of the originals, the 10 Commandments of Computer Ethics. They're pretty direct, which I love. The first batch is all about personal behavior. Don't hurt people, don't mess with their work, and don't snoop in their files. Then it moves into property and truth. Don't steal, don't lie, and don't pirate software. Pretty straightforward stuff.
Okay, and the last 4 commandments? This is where things get really deep. We're moving beyond just what not to do. 7 and 8 are about respecting other people's stuff, their resources, and their ideas. But then look at 9 and 10. They challenge us to think about the social consequences of what we create and to always act with consideration and respect. That's a huge leap from don't steal to actively be a force for good.
Okay, this next one might sound like it's straight out of a movie, and it is. But believe me, Asimov's 3 laws of robotics have had a massive influence on how we think about AI. It creates this perfect little ethical hierarchy. Number 1, protect humans. Number 2, obey humans, unless it violates Rule 1. And number 3, protect yourself, unless it violates Rules 1 or 2. It's the ultimate thought experiment for anyone designing an autonomous system. So that's the classic stuff. But how does this all play out in the real world for people who actually build this technology? Well, professional organizations have their own codes of conduct, and they take them very seriously.
Take the IEEE, for instance. That's the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. It's a huge deal, and their code of ethics gets right to the point. Members must hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. That's not just a suggestion, it's job one.
And you see the exact same idea from the ACM, the Association for Computing Machinery. Their code points out this balancing act that every professional faces. You have a duty to your client and to your employer, but that duty can never, ever override your responsibility to the public interest. The public good has to win. All right, let's shift gears and make this super personal, because this next part affects every single one of us every single day.
In our world of big data and social media, nothing is more ethically charged than the issue of privacy. So what is information privacy? Well, at its heart, it's all about one word: control. It's your right, your fundamental right, to decide how your personal information gets collected, how it gets used, and who it gets shared with. Simple as that.
And this is a really, really important point that a lot of people mix up. Privacy and security are not the same thing. Security is the wall around the castle, designed to keep the bad guys out. Privacy is the set of rules for what the people inside the castle are allowed to do with your stuff. You can have the most secure system in the world, but if the company is selling your data without your consent, you have zero privacy.
So one of the practical ways that organizations try to spell this all out is with something called an acceptable use policy, or an AUP. It's basically the rule book for using their systems, and a good one will cover everything from who legally owns the data to what your responsibilities are for keeping it safe.
And that brings us to our final question for you. I want you to really think about this. If you were put in charge and you had to write an acceptable use policy for your job or your school, what's the very first rule you would write? What's the number one most important principle you'd want everyone to follow?